Speaker of Parliament Alban Bagbin on Wednesday deferred the second day of the 2024 budget debate until the Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta or his deputies appeared before the House. The Speaker's decision followed an argument by former Minority Leader Haruna Idrisu that the debate must not proceed because the Minister was absent. There was a counter-appeal from the Minority Leader, Dr. Ato Forsen, for the debate to proceed.
Proceed to the budget debate now. We'll start with statements until we see evidence from the political leadership of the ministry present in the House. Then we can go to the budget debate. So let's handle statements now. We need them to be available to note the submissions of members, take them serious, and make sure that they are factored into the management of our economy, particularly the implementation of the 2024 budget. So please, since we have some two statements available, we could take that now. We have the whole day to handle the budget. We will still, if we get time, also take questions. So, Honorable Daphne, don't lose hope. You may be here today asking your questions.
That was the Speaker's decision after he heard the argument of the former Minority Leader and the Minority Leader. Let's now get on to Zoom and speak to Dr. Rashid Rahman of the African Center for Parliamentary Affairs. Thank you so much for your time, Doc. I mean, what do you make of this? Do we really need the Finance Minister to be there? He's done his work. He's presented the budget statement to the House. Now, the House has the responsibility to debate and approve or otherwise the financial statement. Does he need to be there, or do his deputies need to be there at all?
In normal times, perhaps the absence of the minister might not be a big issue, but we are in abnormal times. Our country is currently going through very serious challenges, and I would have thought that, this is a budget that is supposed to give, most of us and our compatriots some relief. And if there is any period during which the Minister of Finance and his deputies have to be in Parliament, this is that period. It's very difficult to understand. I don't know what kind of difficult circumstances taking the minister away. But I would have thought that, whatever it is, perhaps maybe some scheduling would have to be done in such a way that, the minister is in the House, because there is some comparison that has been made with, for instance, many years ago when Honorable Baoredu was Minister for Finance. During this period of debate on the budget, he would sit in the House and take notes and respond appropriately. So I think that's the context. And beyond that, I think yesterday we saw in the House, how the House was virtually empty. During a period like this, it beats my imagination.
Right, Doc. Just not to cut you short, but just by way of information, we are told that the Finance Minister is out of the country. We know where we are with trying to get the second tranche of our IMF support. And so he is in negotiations outside the country. That's equally important, citing what you just spoke about, the current state of our economy and the need for all these interventions. Also, much later, though, we were told that the numbers picked up. I agree that the numbers initially were quite terrible to report on. So the question here is, this is more of a moral argument, isn't it? Because the minister didn't necessarily breach any standing orders of the House.
No. Really, the minister didn't breach any standing orders. I think it's more of looking at our context and looking at what we are dealing with as a country. And so, yes, I think that is where, the argument is. And, these budget discussions, the timing of the presentation of the budget and all the discussions that follow are things that were programmed, ahead of time. And I believe that the minister and his team were part of, selecting this period. So whatever it is, I think, like you said, it's not a legal argument. I think it's more of not even moral, but an argument that is tied to the kind of extenuating circumstances that our country is dealing with at the moment, which requires that we get all the answers, Parliament gets all the answers, all the clarifications, and so on. And I think it's the minister and his team that can provide these answers.
Right. Much later, though, we know that the debate resumed. The day before, one of his deputies was in the House, and so this is much ado about nothing. I mean, their argument is the minister has done his job. You have to do your job of scrutinizing the document and approving it or not.
Well, yes, not necessarily much to do about nothing, because the budget is a very important, if not the most important policy document of the government and the most important policy of every country. And I believe that, in dealing with the budget as well as other documents before the House, the availability of information, the transparency of information are all critical. And members of Parliament ask questions, and those questions need to be answered. And I believe that that's where the presence and the availability of the minister and his team would have made a big difference. So that we don't get into the realm of speculation. We don't get into the realm of people interpreting and giving meaning to things really that are not. Sometimes we can overblow things in our country. Somebody could take an issue that is really not relevant, and because all the answers have not been provided, then the debate begins to take a different turn. So that is why it's important not only for the minister. I think once we are questioning the absence of the minister, most importantly for me, what is more important is the seriousness of the members themselves to show up on time. And not to get a situation where, like you were saying, the numbers picked up. No, the numbers have to be present at 10 o'clock in the morning when this process is beginning.
Right. And on the issue of absenteeism, you have been speaking over the years about this. Organizations like Odikru have come up with reports talking about absenteeism in Parliament, and it still seems to be a problem. We're going into an election year. We're likely going to see the House getting, very fewer numbers represented, because people will now begin to focus on either getting re-elected or helping their party win the general elections and all that. What's your do you harbor any fears about what Parliament is going to look like in the coming days?
The issue of absenteeism, I think Parliament has lost it, because I have said over and over, we have taken an approach which over the years, not only, I think beginning from about the 5th Parliament up to this time, speaker after speaker, and then eventually we saw in the 8th Parliament, this Parliament, when a number of MPs were sent to the Privileges Committee and so on, for breaching that provision of their standing orders. But, when we sum it up all, it looks like the approach in dealing with this legally has failed. And I have said that maybe we might need to rethink this and perhaps take the approach that some countries, a realistic approach, some countries have taken in the Scandinavia and other places where, you know, they hit you where it bites most. That is, you know, you are absent, you lose some of your financial entitlements. That is, if you are absent without having gone through the right processes that that Parliament has laid down. Because, you know, I would just, not imagine a situation where in this Parliament or in any future Parliament, where members can come together and say we are expelling our own. So really, this issue has to be looked at very, very carefully. I know when some of us say this, because I remember this matter of financial kind of sanctions and so on. Some members disagree with that, and I have had instances when I've gotten into discussions with members of Parliament for saying something like this. But you know, you need to show up and do your job. And if you don't, I think we need to find a way to make sure that, you know, some sanctions are meted out. Otherwise, this is going to only get serious. Particularly, like you rightly said, with elections coming, until Parliament is dissolved, members of Parliament have to show up and do their job, because they are taking salary for all this time until they are no longer members of Parliament.
Doc, I appreciate your time this morning. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing your thoughts. Dr. Rashid Draman is with the African Center for Parliamentary Affairs, and we've been talking about the absence of the finance minister and his deputies in Parliament, which led to the Speaker deferring the second day of the debate until we had a deputy representing, and later the debate was resumed.